How's Mark Mitchell doing? Well, I've got some updates, but not a ton of clarity coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And with so much happening right now, I just wanted to get in a quickie here before the Florida game tonight. And especially I wanted to give you an update on Mark Mitchell. I posted my episode last night without video, of course. Nice job. I've hit the triple crown in terms of technical snafus this week. It's truly been unbelievable, but we're gonna power through. But Dennis Gates last night was asked, of course, by the media about Mark Mitchell. Didn't give us any exact updates on it for sure. In fact, Dennis Gates said, quote, "I don't even know what happened, to be honest with you." And I'm saying that honestly. I just take and adhere to what our doctors and trainers say, and I don't question those individuals at all. And Mark knows what he can and cannot do. He didn't want to put our team at a disadvantage if he's not at 100%. So at the end of the day, he trusted our substitutions and our depth, and he didn't just put himself back in the game. So for me, that's a sign of great leadership, and we'll see what the prognosis is. And basically, Gates really didn't have any updates beyond that. Now, Power Mizzou's Drew King actually went into the locker room to ask Mark himself how he was doing, and basically Mark said he jumped, landed. Well, actually, let me just quote him here. He says, quote, "I just jumped up and I just kind of stopped real fast, kind of hard. I mean, I still ran down after, so I don't think it's nothing too serious. Just a little sore." So basically, that kind of tells me what I suspected last night. Of course, watching the game, it was obvious to see that, well, Mitchell wasn't putting any ice packs or wraps or any extra attention. Was really seemed to being given to that knee. He was standing on it. Like he said, he ran down the court at one point. And obviously, he was still in uniform the whole time. And Gates actually added there was talk about him going back into the ball game, and just added, of course, once again, it's a doctor's and a player's decision. Quote, "I kind of stand up the entire game. I look down, see who's available. It happened in the first half, correct? So I don't know yet. I'll get that information. Our SID, Jason, will release something if something needs to be released. I think we have the injury reports or something like that, right?" So again, not a lot of clarity here, even for Dennis Gates himself, at least talking to the media last night. As I record here, 9:30 here on Friday morning, haven't had any major updates from the Mizzou media yet. Again, we will have an injury report at some point here this afternoon, maybe a little earlier this morning. I do believe Dennis Gates is absolutely correct there. I'm guessing Mark Mitchell will certainly be on said injury report. It'll just be interesting to see if he's out, if he's questionable, what it is. If I had to guess, I would think they'll precautionally keep Mitchell out of the rest of this tournament. That's just my guess. However, I wouldn't be shocked if he played today either. Again, based on what he said last night, maybe it was just a bit of a twinge in the knee, whatever you want to call it, a bit of a hiccup, and he'll be fine when he wakes up today. That kind of stuff occasionally happens for sure, especially after a 30-plus game college basketball season. Aches and pains, little things here and there can pop up and can maybe seem like more than what they are in the moment. Now, if Mark Mitchell does not play this evening against Florida, well, the Missouri guards are really going to have to do a lot of work because, in my opinion, just based on how the previous game against Florida played out and just the matchup in general, I think the Tigers are probably going to have to outscore Florida. Score probably in the 90s to win, I'm guessing. And obviously, Missouri is very capable of that. But just to my point here, since scoring 44 points, actually losing 64-44 in Knoxville on February 1st, the Gators have scored at least 79 points in every single ball game since, and often 85 to 95 points, somewhere in there. Florida, like Missouri, clearly one of the elite offensive teams in the country. Of course, the difference is Florida's one of the elite defensive teams in the country as well, whereas Missouri is fairly mediocre in that category overall. They're not terrible, although at times they've certainly been terrible defensively the last few weeks. It was certainly encouraging that Missouri was better yesterday. Was it perfect? No, but the last two ball games for Missouri at least the defense has been somewhat passable. And obviously I think Missouri has to score the basketball, but what else do the Tigers have to do to win this game? And maybe T.O. Barrett might actually get some run in this ball game after his results in Gainesville. Let's talk some more about this. Again, a quick episode of Locked On Mizzou here. So really quickly, I do just want to tell you about Nissan, the Nissan Armada Pro-4X with the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, room for up to 8 people. Whether you're exploring the off-roads or rolling up to the game, the Armada Pro-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. And if you ever check your bank account and wonder where all your money went, well, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Insights from all over the app, including how much money you're spending on food, all in one convenience instead of juggling multiple apps. And easy collaboration too, so you can collaborate with a partner. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year. Now, in Missouri's previous win over Florida, 83-82 in Gainesville, obviously a pretty high-scoring game there. But to me, it wasn't as though Missouri totally shot the lights out or anything like that in that ball game. The real reason, low-key, the Tigers won that is because more or less they fought the Gators to a draw on the glass. If Missouri is able to get defensive rebounds tonight and also take care of the dang ball too, because too many unforced turnovers yesterday by Missouri and just in the last couple of weeks as well. But really, if Missouri can fight the Gators to basically a draw once again on the defensive glass in particular, then I think the Tigers have a real chance to win this thing. That's going to be a real key here. And also, speaking of those unforced turnovers, well, Anthony Robinson, another reason, one of many, that he needs to stay out of foul trouble is because I want either him or Tony Perkins ideally in the game at all times, because as much as Marquez Warwick, for example, is a really, really good scorer, he is not a true point guard. And when one of those guys, when Perkins and Robinson are out of the game and you don't want to put T.O. Barrett in, for example, well, Warwick is then basically your de facto point guard. And I thought that really hurt Missouri at times yesterday because, well, you're putting a guy out of position in a spot where that's not really his strong suit, especially when Mississippi State turns up the defensive pressure and you've got, to put it kindly, a rather inconsistent whistle in Nashville yesterday. And while I'm on the topic of point guards, I do have to bring up T.O. Barrett once again, because I do wonder, is he going to get any run in this Florida game? At least if Walter Clayton is going off, and if Anthony Robinson does get into foul trouble, I could certainly see him getting in there, because Walter Clayton certainly was going off in this big second half comeback by Florida that Missouri just was able to outlast. Well, one of the big reasons for that, I thought, was some excellent defense at the top of the key by T.O. Barrett, who has really good size and mobility for a point guard at about 6'4" or something like that. And boy, when he's got the hair, he may be 6'9", something like that. When the afro's really going, he may be, when the sideshow Bob look is really going, he may even be taller than that. But seriously, I could very much see Barrett getting some surprise action in this ball game. And really, if Mark Mitchell doesn't play, that puts Missouri in a real bind, because obviously Aiden Shaw is a very good defensive player, but if Missouri is going to outscore Florida, as I think that's probably what's going to have to happen, Missouri's going to have to get at least into the 80s, probably into the 90s if I'm guessing, to win this game. That gets really tough, especially if you're going to have to play Aiden Shaw and Josh Gray at the same time in certain moments. So does Missouri maybe play a little bit smaller? Do we maybe turn to Marcus Allen, who didn't play at all yesterday and hasn't much for the last couple weeks as well? Maybe play Trent Pierce a little bit at the 4 spot. These are all options. Obviously, the ideal option would be to have a healthy Mark Mitchell for this ball game. But obviously, having him healthy for the NCAA tournament is the most important thing of all. And I'm not the biggest high school recruiting guy in the world. I typically leave that to others, especially for 2028 recruits. But you know what? I'm going to make an exception for a Mizzou legacy. Ridge Janes, son of Ron Janes, Missouri fullback in the late 90s, played with the Corby Jones, Brock Olivo, Devin West era, that whole thing. Well, his son Ridge, a 2028 tight end, seems to be emerging as a bona fide national prospect at this point. Played his high school ball at DeSmet in St. Louis last year. Plenty of these sort of Midwestern Big 12 and Big 10 teams are really interested. Teams like Illinois and Minnesota. I think Kansas State have maybe even kicked the tires on the young man at this point. Illinois, Iowa State, and obviously Missouri has a level of interest as well. And I just wanted to bring that up. I just think it's really cool because, well, we're big fans of Ron Janes, the Rhino, in the Miller house. He played his high school ball in Clarence, Missouri. That's where my great-grandmother, my grandfather was from. And, you know, I spent some of my childhood going to the Clarence homecoming and all that good stuff. And really more to the point, my mom, when she worked for the team in the 90s, well, Ron Janes was always one of her guys, as she said. A big fan of the Rhino, of course, was my mom and still is. So I just thought that'd be an interesting note for her in particular and all of you as well, that Ridge Janes coming on as a real prospect here. And in 2028, his graduating year, he's got plenty of time to pile on even more impressive offers. So it'll be fun to watch how his recruiting and career unfolds here over the next few years. And hey, thanks for joining me on this quick edition of Locked On Mizzou and making it your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball. Got to figure out the bracket before it's even unveiled. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. And I'll see you after the Missouri-Florida game tonight right here on Locked On Mizzou.